Hello dear students, here I am back with my new video of plant water relation part 3. So let's get started with transport of mineral ions. Minerals that play an important role in the day-to-day life of the plants. Those minerals they constitutes most commonly occurring solid and crystalline inorganic materials that is obtained from the earth crusts. The minerals are absorbed by plants in the ionic form and mainly that is through the roots, and then it is transported to the rest of the parts of the plants. The absorbed mineral ions are pulled in upward direction along with the xylem sap because of the transpiration pull. What is transpiration pull? It's when the water is pulled upward passively against the gravity, and then it gets unloaded by fine veins through the process of diffusion in the vicinity of cells. The cells then uptake them actively. The soil would not only be the source of mineral uptake. Some mineral ions can be remobilized within the parts of the plants. So sometimes older plants they get when they fall, they remobilize or they export their ions to the younger leaves before they fall. So example, leaves in the deciduous plants. The most readily mobilized ions are phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen and potassium, but the calcium is not remobilized. The absorption of mineral is independent of that of the water. The mineral ions are needed in the areas of plants like apical, lateral, young leaves, developing flower, fruits, seeds and the storage organs. Then next is transport of the food. All the part of the plants are required continuous supply of the food for the nutrition and their development. The chloroplast is the place where photosynthesis happens and the food is synthesized. So chloroplasts are confined to green cells of the leaves where food is synthesized, and the non-green parts like root and stem they must receive food from the leaves. The part where food is synthesized is known as source, and the part where it is utilized is known as sink. So where the food is synthesized in the plant, it is known as source, and the rest of the parts which are not able to synthesize food but they have to utilize the food is known as sink. The food has to travel from the source to the sink, and that process is known as translocation of the food. So what is path of the translocation? In higher plants, food is to be translocated to the longer distance because the height of the plant is too much. So those sieve tubes and vessels are structurally ideally suited for the longitudinal or upward translocation. The horizontal translocation occur from the phloem to the pith and phloem to the cortex via medullary rays in the stem. So the food is always translocated in the form of sucrose. So always it is a form of sucrose where in which form the food is always translocated to the rest of the body of the plant, and always along with the concentration gradient from the sucrose to the sink where the food is utilized. The transport of food occurs in the vertical and lateral. So vertical means longitudinal and lateral means horizontal directions. So let's take it one by one. What is vertical translocation? In vertical translocation, food is translocated in the downward direction from leaves means source, to the stem and root means they are sink. So it also happens in upward direction during the germination of the seeds. So upward translocation also occurs from leaves to the growing point of stem or to the developing flowers and fruits situated near the ends of the branches of the stem. Then what is lateral translocation? It occurs in the root and the stem. So when food is translocated from the phloem to pith, it is called lateral translocation. Laterals means horizontal translocation, and when the food is translocated from the phloem to the cortex is called tangential translocation. Okay, so the transport of food through the phloem is bidirectional. Bidirectional means it is going into two different directions. So the phloem sap contains mainly water and food in the form of sucrose, but sugar, amino acids and hormones are also transported through the phloem. Then next is mechanism of sugar transport through the phloem. So there are several mechanisms or theories like diffusion, activated diffusion, protoplasmic streaming, electroosmosis, pressure flow. So many theories are there for the transport of sugar through the phloem. But most important was the Munch pressure flow theory, or it was also known as mass flow theory. So during the process of photosynthesis, the cell synthesizes glucose food. So due to which osmotic pressure increases and the endoosmosis happens and water is absorbed from the surrounding and the xylem. So did you get my point? So when it is endoosmosis, the water will enter into the cell, then the water will absorb. The water will be absorbed by the cell and the cell will be swallowed. Okay. So due to increase in the turgor pressure, the sucrose from photosynthetic cells is forced ultimately into the sieve tube of vein. It is called as loading of veins. So at sink end where food is utilized. So at sink end, root cells utilizes sugar and also polymerizes excess sugar into the starch. Then osmotic concentration is lowered and the process of exoosmosis will happen again. So water will go out from the cell to the surrounding and then their unloading of veins will happen. So at the sink end, sugar is used and excess water exudes into the xylem. So Munch pressure theory is a physical process theory, but it does not explain the bidirectional transport of the food. So that is a limitation of this Munch theory, that it is not able to explain the bidirectional, means if the food is going into two directions. So it was not able to explain the bidirectional. So that was the limitation of mass theory or Munch theory. So next is transpiration. What is transpiration? So transpiration, the plants, they absorb water constantly and continuously. Okay, so almost 5% of the total water is absorbed by root, that is utilized for the cell expansion and their plant growths. Rest of the 95% of water that become surplus and which is then lost into the atmosphere with the process of transpiration. So what transpiration means? It is a loss of water in the form of vapors. So here in this diagram you can see the process of transpiration where roots are taking up water from the soil. So this water will go in upward direction to the stem. So water is drawn up to the stem to the leaves, and this water will go to the leaves and every part or every veins of the leaves, and then ultimately this water gets evaporated from the leaves in the form of vapor. So this process is known as transpiration. So the loss of water in the form of vapor is called as transpiration, and that occurs through the leaves. Foliar transpiration is known as foliar transpiration. It happens through the stem and flower and fruits also. The actual water loss during the transpiration occurs through the three main sites. One is cuticle. It is known as cuticular transpiration. When it is through the stomata, it is known as stomatal transpiration, and when it is through the lenticels, it is known as lenticular transpiration. So what is cuticular transpiration? The cuticle is present on the outer surface of epidermal cell of the leaves and stem. Epidermal, outer layer of the cell of the plant parts. It occurs by simple diffusion and contributes almost 8 to 10% of the total transpiration. Then next is lenticular transpiration. So each lenticels is a porous tissues consisting of cells with large intercellular spaces in periderm of secondarily thickened organs and the bark of the old stem, and also in the pericarp of the woody fruits. So it only total transpiration of 0.1 to 1.0% of the total transpiration happens through the lenticular transpiration process. Then next is important is stomatal transpiration. So almost 90 to 93% of total transpiration that occurs through the stomata. Stomata, they are present on the both side of the leaves. So stomata are small opening. I will just explain you the structure of stomata in next few slides. So that happens, the stomatal transpiration that happens during the daytime only. Only in the desert plant it is exception, otherwise the transpiration through the stomata only happens during the daytime only. So stomata are minute apertures formed of two guard cells and some accessory cells. They are located in the epidermis of young leaves. So depending upon the distribution of stomata, leaves are of three types. So one is epistomatic, when it is present on the upper epidermis of the leaf. Example is hydrophytes and most importantly lotus. Then second one is hypostomatic, in when the stomata are present on the lower epidermis. Example is xerophytes, and that example is nerium. And third is amphistomatic, when the stomatas are present on the both the surfaces of the leaf. Examples are mesophytes. The example of mesophyte is a grass. Then here is the structure of stomatal apparatus. Stomata, you can see there are two different stomatas are present. One in the one picture you can see open stomata is there, and in the second picture you can see the stoma is a closed. So stoma is an elliptical pore formed due to a specific arrangement of the guard cells. It is through the stoma, excess water is lost in the form of vapor. So there is, you can see this diagram, the one diagram stoma is open, second diagram stoma is closed. So here is a structure of guard cell. In the above diagram you can see there is a guard cells are present outside the stoma. So guard cells are living nucleated cells with the unevenly thick walls. The inner walls of guard cells is thick and inelastic, and its lateral wall is thin and it is elastic. So guard cells contain few chloroplasts which are capable of somewhat of photosynthesis, not exactly, but it is also responsible for photosynthesis. The guard cells have the ability to change their size and form, due to which stoma open and they closes. So they have ability to change their sizes. So because of that, those stoma they open or widen and they sometimes closes, that is narrowing of the stoma. In the below diagram you can see these are the types of guard cells. So some in A diagram you can see kidney shapes which is present in the dicot plant specially, and the dumbbell shapes of guard cells, they are present in the monocot plants. Now next is the opening and closing of stoma. So it is controlled by turgor of the guard cells. So during daytime, when the guard cells become turgid, and due to the process of endoosmosis and happens, and the stoma they opened. Okay, and during night time, when the guard cells become flaccid due to the exosmosis process, and the stoma closes and they almost completely they closes. That is why this process of transpiration does not happen during the night time, because of the stoma are closed. So this is the process of starch sugar interconversion theory, where starch is converted into the sugar in the daytime in the presence of enzyme phosphorylase, and in the night time when sugar converted again into the starch, that is during the night time, and night time the stoma closes and during the daytime stomas are open. So what is the significance of transpiration? Transpiration is important as it removes excess of water from the plants. 2. It also helps in the ascent of sap. Ascent of sap, transpiration of water. Then third, it also maintains the turgidity of cell as the process of exosmosis and endoosmosis happens, and it is also important to maintain the turgidity of the cell. Number 4, as the stomata are open, gaseous exchange required for the photosynthesis and the process of respiration and is facilitate these processes. Number 5, it also helps in the passive absorption of water and mineral from the soil. So, because of the transpiration process, the absorption of mineral and soil from minerals and water from the soil also happens. And important is the transpiration helps in reducing the temperature of leaf, and it is also imparting cooling effect. So these all are the significances of transpiration, but most disadvantage of transpiration is that excessive transpiration leads to the wilting and injury in the plants. So it may also lead to the death of the plant. So sometimes when the water loss is most happens, so that time the leaf or the death of the plants also happen because of the process of transpiration. Then next is, what is transpiration is a necessary evil. So that is also known as that the transpiration is a necessary evil. When stomata are open, then only the gaseous exchange will happen, so which is needed for the respiration and photosynthesis. If stomatal transpiration stop, it will directly affect the productivity of the plant through the loss of photosynthetic and respiratory activity. So consequently, transpiration cannot be avoided. So hence in 1926, Curtis regarded that the transpiration is a necessary evil. It is important as well as it may cause death of the plant. So that is why it is known as a necessary evil. So this is how we are done with our chapter number 6, plant mineral relation. So I hope you would understand important aspect of plant mineral relationship, how water, food, mineral, everything transported, what is the process of transpiration, and how they get absorbed by the plants, and how this process happens. So thank you for watching video.